everybody. Welcome back to Salesforce with Megan. For those that are new here and just tuning in, I talk about everything Salesforce tech, productivity tips, and career growth. So during the past few weeks, we've had Salesforce professionals come on and share their stories, just showcasing how they led from their previous careers to the Salesforce industry now. And today's guest is very special because we both come from the same background at academia, and we both have a passion to incorporate technology and education together. I actually came across his video from Focus on Force, and I've talked about this before, but there is a focus people section, and people come on and talk about their story and how they utilize Focus on Force. And I was just really inspired by his story. So a little bit about Tracey. And so for everybody, welcome Tracey. We are going to be talking about all the Salesforce certifications that he has gotten over the past few months. Without further ado, I love to be able to introduce Tracey. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and a fun fact.
All right. My name is Tracey Kitt. I am from Charlotte. I have been in education the vast majority of my career. And a fun fact is that I have 3 sons, all of whom are Chilingos, meaning they were born in Chile or Chile in South America, and they have both Chilean and United Statesian citizenship. So that's my fun fact of who I am.
Yay, thank you. Well, I'm so excited to have you here. Like I said earlier, Tracey and I both come from the academia world, and incorporating both education and technology is super important to us. So I would like to just go ahead and dive right into the interview. And as a former teacher, I know that we'll talk about this soon, but as a former teacher, do you believe that your experience helped you approach studying differently in a different way?
Definitely. I think having been in the classroom and taught everyone from, I think my youngest was ever a 4-year-old all the way to a 64-year-old. The way in which we learn and how you teach someone through a process has significantly pushed how I go about learning. There's everything from, backwards planning, knowing where you're going and how do you break that into like sizable chunks. There is understanding like cognitive load, like how much your brain can actually process, and teachers are always taught this so that they don't overload their students. And so now it's like I am trying to make sure I don't overload myself. Another crazy thing is so of course I've been in education for a long time, and I decided to get my master's in applied linguistics, which talks about how you learn a language. And in that process they talk about like the cycles and how you get things into that moving it from like your working memory to your long-term memory. And so I've like taken all of those like chunks and kind of put them into how I go about studying. And it's definitely been a process. Like I started out like this, and then the second iteration was, all right, let's try that. And then the third iteration, and every time I go after another cert, it's like, all right, let's try a different way to go about it. So it's been a good process. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I know I kind of jumped the gun there, but like tell us a little bit of how you fell into Salesforce. Like
Okay.
how did you discover it? What interested you about it, especially?
Okay. I think to start out with, I always love data and like Google Sheets, Excel, all that stuff. Like I will geek out there all day. And when I ran my previous company in Chile, I was the guy that were like, well, you like Google Sheets, get in there, And so I'm like, okay, I'll like organize this, At that point, I didn't know I was putting together a data model, right? But I like had all these experiences was about 5.5 years of managing all of our data. And then as I jumped back into the regular classroom or the traditional classroom, it was Google Sheets. And again, people were like, oh yeah, Kit likes that, throw it at him. And I got to a point where I wanted a new challenge, and I started brainstorming with some friends. And one of them said, yo, you're like data 101, man. You need to go and look at Salesforce. And I'm like, okay, I had no idea what it was. And so what was it? May 20th? No, May 23rd, something like that. No, May 20th was my introduction to Salesforce. And I opened it up and I'm like, what? How did I not know about this? Like when I was trying to run a company and all these other sorts of pieces, like for me, it's the, like a spreadsheet, but like boosted that much more. So that's like how I got into it. And ever since then, I've been trying to get as much of it as I can, and like looking at it from different angles, whether that's like the health cloud or nonprofit or sales or service, all of those. So that's kind of what pushed me into Salesforce.
That's really cool. So you started in May 2020. What type of resources did you start learning from? Did you start on Trailhead? And then how long did it take for you to discover the other study resources?
Right. Yeah. So I started on Trailhead. Yeah, started on Trailhead. I think the combination was David K. Liu.
Oh,
He was
yeah.
one of the first videos. I love that guy. Like he's
Same.
amazing. Like he just inspired me. And there's just one video. And he kind of like works through what search to get.
Mm.
And from there I started in Trailhead. And it wasn't until App Builder, which was my second, that I decided, okay, I need to go about this in a more strategic way because I had a short time window to, get what I was hoping for, my goal of 5 search or whatnot. And so that's when I added in focus on force. And that was a pivotal moment. Like that they curate all of those PDFs and all of that content so well. So I'm pretty sure, yeah, I would not have been able to do it had I not used their resources. There's a bunch of like YouTubers out there that I've seen that kind of were part of like maybe specific parts where I didn't understand something, and I would do that. But focus on force, Trailhead, those two combined is really effective for me at least.
I'm a huge advocate of a focus on force too.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
with you
yeah.
on that one. So I want to, you kind of just mentioned something that I want to ask you about. You said you had 5 certs, a challenge, a personal challenge to you.
Yep,
Like,
yep.
how did you come up with that challenge? What kept the momentum going and really what inspired you to do so?
As I was transitioning from a classroom teacher, I wanted people to see my drive. Like when I go after a project, whether it's, grants or projects in my school or what, like I want to go at it 110%. Right. And so I knew that people would doubt, like, do you know what's going on? Like you're a teacher, you don't know what's going on with data and that sort of stuff. So I thought, well, the only way to do that would be to get as much as I could. And going back again to David Liu, he said the 5, it was like the core admin certs.
Mhm.
And those were admin, advanced admin, app builder, sales, and service. He said, when you get those and you have a pretty good idea of how Salesforce works, of course, theoretical, I think I'm really excited to get more hands-on. But that was kind of like my goal. And from there, I just kind of backwards planned it out to figure out how much time I had, and wanting to present myself very strongly come fall of 2021 this year. Yeah. So that was kind of my plan. And I guess the motivating factor, a lot of family issues with health
Mhm.
recently, like, my parents and my wife's parents and stuff. And it kind of like was a wake up call to say, like, if you want to get your junk in line so that if something does happen to you, you're able to support your family. And like, I get it. Like teachers, we don't make a lot of money or whatnot, but I hated like thinking like, all right, son, I know you're bleeding right now, but do we really need to go to urgent care? I don't think so, So all of that, trying to think through those, and those are kind of like goofy sides of things, but I really wanted to position myself so that in 10 years, there would be tons of options. And it's not just money, right? I think it's exciting to learn and be in a space where that could kind of go about, or be a part of your day-to-day job. And
Mhm.
I had always thought like the corporate world would be, um, I would lose that kind of learning experience. Instead, you just
Mhm.
kind of dig into one thing. But that's what's cool about Salesforce. Like you can go in so many different angles. And so that was another kind of attractive piece and a high motivator for me. I knew that in order to make the jump, um, there was a lot of learning and a lot of challenges to take.
So Tracy, in the 5 months that you have gotten all the 5 certifications, looking back, because
Mhm.
that's amazing. First off, that's absolutely amazing. But looking back, you mentioned that you watched David Liu's video and the 5 certifications that he suggested, whether that be like admin and then advanced admin, sales, service. Now looking back, and if you were talking to somebody who was just starting or has their first cert, and they ask you the question, Tracy, what cert should I take? Based on your experience, how would you answer that question? How would you navigate them in terms of the certifications that they should take?
Great question. I think, yeah, because you're trying to figure out how do I use my resources, my time, the most in an effective way, right? And I do believe, of course, we all start off with admin, right? And then from there, it's interesting how they feed each other.
Mhm.
Um, I would say that app builder and advanced admin were very similar. And what's even more interesting right now is I'm in the middle of studying for PD1. And I actually would say, I don't know if this is crazy, but I would say go, app builder, advanced admin right beside each other. And then right after go PD1, because sales and service are,
Hmm.
they're unique, right? You start looking at different pieces. And it's almost like you want to hang on to the momentum of understanding um, those relationships, and because there's a lot of repetition, and and data management, data modeling, all of those are very strong throughout all three of those, PD1, advanced admin, and app builder. I would also recommend to get as condensed as possible, like keep it all tight and close. I understand that we all have different, challenges, and maybe, family life and all that sort of stuff going on. But if you're able to do it in a shorter window, your brain can handle it so much better, because you can like, oh yeah, I remember that, right? But
Yeah.
I would imagine that as you extend that, it makes it more difficult. Most of my certs were within 2 weeks, or it was, yeah, it was around 12 to 19 days on almost certs. Now I was punching in like 120 hours, or like it was like in between 90 to 110, and then one app builder was the 120. It was a beast, man.
Yeah.
But trying to find a way to get that in as much as possible, or keep it tight.
That was actually my next question, because David Liu also made a video, and even I think it was one of his first videos going all the way back.
Okay.
But he mentioned that when you're taking these certs, like take them in a short window, because
Yeah.
you want that knowledge to be fresh, but also like you want that technical knowledge to still be in there. So that kind of brings me to my next question for you. I have a lot of mentees or people that I talk to that have kids as well. I know you have
Mhm.
three.
Yeah.
And they want to be able to just study and get in there. And for somebody who has, kids yourself, what would you suggest to people? Like, how was your study time? I know you just said like 90 to 120 hours, but can you run me through like what was your week like, your study periods, like
Okay.
everything, 24 hours pretty much?
Okay. So I start every day at 5:15, and I know I have 17 hours in a day before
Right.
I'm back in the bed at 10:15 or something of that nature, right?
Mhm.
And I would really hold strong to those things, because that would allow my brain, I felt, to actually, engage, instead of just staring at a screen and you're just like, what is going on, right? So that, I think that was like a big factor. And then in the increments, I knew like the different moments of like breakfast, lunch, or whatnot, and being able to communicate to the people around me. Maybe it's parents or kids or spouses or whatever it is, to say like, hey, I've got an hour and 20 minutes. I got to dig into this PDF set. And then I'm coming out and I'm going to go, I have a trampoline. And so me and my sons, we would jump for like 10 or 15 minutes. And then, all right, dad's back at it. And they knew like, hey, this is what I'm doing for this amount of time. And then I come out of it and I go back. And it
Mhm.
helped my brain to like reset and
Mm.
then go back in. And because without that, I don't know if I can, I mean, I guess at some certain points, um, yeah, I had to like do those really deep dives, but I would try to hold strong to bedtime and morning time, so that like I would feel alive, and everything from like drinking, water and all that jazz. Being really holistic, I guess, is what I'm trying to say with that. But figuring out what your times were. I have an Excel that, or not an Excel, a sheet that helped me track how many seconds every PDF for Focus on Force took me. So
Brilliant.
I know that like sales had around, I want to say 1,600 pages.
Mhm.
And as I would go through, because they do a great job of breaking it down, but then you break it down even more. And I was realizing, okay, I need like 115 seconds per PDF, which sounds crazy, but it just helped me. I could
Mhm.
look at a PDF in the beginning and say, this is probably going to take me, hour 48 minutes. This is what I need, and then I'm out. So I think as we do that, we reduce procrastination. We reduce like that stress of like how much time am I? Because I knew like, all right, right now I know I have 58 hours left of PD1 study. Unless things go drastically bad, or even worse, even better, who knows? But having those numbers helped me to communicate to other people, and meet my marks, and just kind of keep on going from there.
I love that. And I want to be able to tell the audience, like when I was actually doing the super badge, Tracy stepped in and helped, because he previously did it. And he was my lifesaver there. But on top of it, he actually showed me a video of the resources that he had. And I'm mentioning this because the super badge, he had it saved within a document in his computer, and it was just so beautifully organized. And I was so inspired. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to like do better at like maybe doing like a Google Doc document and keeping my steps, because a lot of times people will ask you like, hey, how did you do that? And it's like, well, I'm sorry, I kind of don't remember. But I love that you had that. And I wanted to ask you, do you think that's the organization and the productivity skills that you have? Like, did you develop that from being a professor? Like, where did you develop those skills, and what would you suggest to others to help them with that area?
Yeah, I think the big push in my life to get organized was being an entrepreneur, right? Like when you are your own boss and you've got to hit meetings and you have to hit deadlines and all that sort of stuff, that just pushed me that much deeper into having a Google Calendar and folders and organization. Like I love keeping things organized so I can find them. A lot of times we don't even realize how robust like Google Doc and Microsoft Word is like a Lamborghini, and we drive it like a Civic. Like, and I drive a Civic, like I love that, but it's like push it into that next gear and let that machine help you. I know that with all of my studying, I have a Google Doc, and I was showing my son the other day, and it was like it's like 243 pages. I was like, that's crazy, right? But Google Docs has a outline feature where you can use keyboard shortcuts to keep things chaptered and indexed. And it's like a huge lifesaver. And oh, again, if I'm taking advanced admin, I can easily reference all of my notes, all of my like outlines, and plug it in there so that I'm not redoing things that are, you don't want to redo things that you've already done. So that was very critical. So I do enjoy a highly organized drive and a highly organized, Google Doc, and color codes.
Yes.
So that's another thing. In all of my notes, I've created a format of how to do that, and a lot of it's with keyboard shortcuts because when you generate, like I use Quizlet as well. Are you familiar with Quizlet? Okay.
Love it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And so I was trying to figure out how do I transfer the Google Doc into the Quizlet and do it in an effective way. And so I figured out all the keyboard shortcuts to split screen and go back and forth. But then also the color codes helped me realize this is what you need to punch out and turn into a blank. So that on Quizlet, I would just easily be able to see it. And that was actually not color coding, but like bold and italicizing certain elements. And once I got that rhythm, I was able to study that much more effectively because there's just so much content. And I think that's what's overwhelming with certifications and that. So figure out what if it's Word, if it's Doc, if it's whatever it is, there's a lot of cool things that we don't even realize. I would encourage everyone to learn their software, I guess. Yeah.
No, that's 100% right. Yeah. You gotta know, like, this is what I talked about in my first video, or like one of my first videos. It's understanding study techniques because we can be thrown all of these materials to be able to learn, like Focus on Fours, and Udemy, Coursera, like so forth, right? But if you don't find your niche, like what you enjoy doing and what works for you best, whether that's, color coding things, whether that's Focus on Fours, or just plain out like printing out index cards and flipping them over and seeing what works for you. It just comes to like figuring out what works. And I think the most important thing, and the reason I really do these videos, I ask people like, what works for you? Can you share it so other people can start hearing different ways people study? And perhaps they can try it and find out what does. And then most importantly, I think the most important part is like what doesn't work for you. So yeah, the other question I have for you is like when you're studying, because 5 certs or 1 cert every month, that's awesome. How do you tell yourself, or how do you not overload yourself? Like when do you say like, Tracey, I need to take a break? Because I know a lot of people that just want to study and they overload themselves. But in order to be a good Salesforce consultant or analyst, like you have to make sure that the material that you're soaking in stays and you're getting that hands-on experience. So that will be the next question. But when does Tracey say like, hey, I need to take a break?
Okay. I think it goes back to trying to make sure that I'm okay with my goal. And so either I have to adjust my goal and say, all right, that's not a good idea. Like, don't do that. That's just going to create stress, unnecessary waste of time of sitting for a cert that you're not going to actually pass. Although I would encourage people to
Same.
not feel like you have to be perfect, right? Like, I think there's this window of like, all right, I'm here. I know I'm not going to get a 92 on this, but I might get like an 85 or 79, whatever it might be, right?
Yeah.
So that's another thing that's very different from the regular education world with certs.
Yeah, when you feel yourself burning out, what do you do to take the time that you need so you can come back stronger?
Drink water. I know it sounds great.
Everybody has their own thing.
That's me. Like this, you will see my now gene is, and it's just with me. So it's a lot of water and then a lot of movement, right? Like, so like I said, you get 120 minutes, then you need to go take a lap around the cul-de-sac or shoot, free throws out in the driveway or trampoline time, whatever it is. And I would say get off the screen.
Yeah.
Because I feel like if you just pick up your phone and all of a sudden you're like doing other like screen related things, your brain is like, no more, or at least my brain is. So I don't know how everyone else handles that. Ooh, one other thing, turn all notifications off.
Yes.
Like, so this was my phone.
Right? Oh, wow.
This is Nokia, right? And complete tangent, my phone company sent me an email in October and said, Mr. Kit, you have to upgrade because 3G is no longer working. And I was like, what? It's working for me. And so all that to be said, when I was doing all these certs, I didn't have a typical smartphone. I'm not even gonna dig into how I've like configure my computer to work like that for me to do all like the smartphone things. Yeah, so if you're always getting notified and you're like going back and forth, like you cannot focus. Ooh, there's a really good book called Indistractable. It's incredible. It goes through all of these different scenarios, but it gives these great tips, right? And maybe it's like, oh yeah, of course, on the surface, but if you're always getting bombarded with distractions, and sometimes you've got kids, you've got other things you got to deal with, like, let's be realistic. But if you can control anything, reduce the unforced errors. And I think one of the biggest ones is being over notified, and just focus, set apart times. This is when I check Gmail. This is when I, hit up texts or whatever it might be. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. There's also a Google Chrome extension that if you have Facebook or whatever social media platform on your computer, you can set it up to block it from the times that you're going to be studying from like 10 to midnight, let's say you're studying, but it completely blocks it. I started using that because I was one of those people that was just like, oh, LinkedIn, like whatever notification came in, it was bad. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, yeah, like it's so difficult because part of that is to a degree, like networking is social media and responding and messaging and all that sort of stuff. But it's trying to find that balance because your brain can't soak in as much when it's distracted. I mean, that's not me. That's what I read in a book. And I mean, like, I feel like for me, it's on point. Like, it's a good feeling to have that focused mind.
It's true though. Yeah. Like if you're not focused and you're not there and you're just distracted, like it's just not going to work out for you.
Right.
So
it's better to like, just say, all right, done. I'm going to come back when I can be focused.
You got to be there. You can't be halfway there.
Hey everybody, in the next video, we'll be covering Tracey's job search experience, exam advice, and resume tips. See you in the next one.